I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
What do Mark Zuckerberg and the Zodiac killer have in common? Besides both being creeps and terrible people, they've both been the subject of a David Fincher movie. Fincher started out directing music videos for Madonna and the Rolling Stones, but he went on to become one of the defining filmmakers of his generation. I've been a Fincher fan since I was a teenager and thought Fight Club was the greatest movie ever made. Fincher is a meticulous craftsman, a notorious perfectionist, and a modern-day master of suspense who's responsible for some of the greatest films of the past 30 years. But some of his films are unimpeachable masterpieces like Seven or Zodiac, and some of them are dull as dishwater like Mank. So here's every David Fincher film ranked from worst to best.
Trust me, everything's gonna be fine. You met me at a very strange time in my life. With your feet on the air, your head on the ground.
Why Hurst? Outside his own blonde Betty Boop, you're always his favourite dinner partner.
I haven't loved all of Fincher's films, but one thing I never thought they'd be is boring. Fincher even made a movie about the founding of Facebook into a riveting thriller, thanks to engaging filmmaking tricks and a razor-sharp script. So I was deeply disappointed when Mank came to Netflix in the middle of the pandemic and proceeded to bore me to tears for 2 and a bit interminable hours. It's a movie about the writing process behind Citizen Kane, supposedly shot in the style of Citizen Kane. But it looks nothing like Citizen Kane. It's shot in black and white, but the visuals are muddy and flat and digitally color graded. It doesn't have any of the aesthetic flourishes that made those old Hollywood classics look so gorgeous. Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried give fantastic performances in the lead roles, and Tom Burke fully embodies the foreboding presence and wry wit of Orson Welles. But watching a drunk write a screenplay doesn't make for a very compelling or even bearable movie. When Fincher graduated from directing music videos, the first feature he was offered was Alien 3, the long-awaited sequel to James Cameron's Aliens. And ironically, it turned out a lot like James Cameron's first film. Fincher was hired to be a puppet, a zombie stooge who would stand on set and blindly execute the studio's ideas. Fincher has since distanced himself from the film and has described the experience as nothing but unpleasant. Alien 3 is nowhere near as great as it would have been if Fincher was given full creative control and the Fox executives had just fucked off and stayed in their lane. And it gets off on the wrong foot immediately by killing off the beloved supporting cast from the previous film. But it's ultimately a pretty fun, monster-infested B-movie set on a dangerous prison planet, and there are occasional flashes of Fincher's budding filmmaking prowess.
They make your life fun.
As a budding young Fincher fan, I went into the game with high hopes. I loved the premise of it. It's simple yet intriguing. And I loved the performances by Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. And I liked 90% of the movie as it slowly built up to its twist ending. But the twist completely ruined it for me. The way the game shakes out in its final moments, with Sean Penn getting shot with a fake gun and Michael Douglas committing suicide directly above a big air cushion, relies entirely on coincidences and contrivances. You'd have to be able to see into the future to orchestrate all that. If a movie is built around a plot twist, then the twist needs to add up or the whole movie falls apart, and the game completely falls apart with that twist. And it's a shame because I was really into the movie up to that point.
You're so young.
Only on the outside.
Loosely adapted from the F. Scott Fitzgerald piece of the same name, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button is a very sweet story, but it might be a little too sweet. This is the first time Fincher stepped away from his usual grim subject matter and tried his hand at something lighter and more saccharine. Uncharacteristic of Fincher's filmmaking, there are no mind games or serial killers or multiple personalities in Benjamin Button, just a very unconventional romance. I think he overdid it on the schmaltz and the runtime. Impressive visual effects and Brad Pitt's poignant portrayal of a man aging in reverse don't quite justify a taxing runtime pushing 3 hours.
Soon you will know us all, only too well, with my apologies.
When Hollywood announced its own big-budget English-language adaptation of Stieg Larsson's uncompromisingly brutal crime novel The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, some fans suspected it would tone down the darkness. But trust Fincher to keep the darkness intact. He also kept the compelling core of the story intact. It's an intense thriller built around a shady corruption plot, but that plot is just there to facilitate the budding relationship between Lisbeth Salander and Michael Blomkvist, and Rooney Mara and Daniel Craig nail that relationship. But as great as all that stuff is, you can't escape the fact that this movie is very long and very grim. It's masterfully crafted, but it's still a slog to get through.
I believe I deserve some recognition from this board.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Which part?
On a technical level, The Social Network is a brilliant piece of filmmaking, and on a broad strokes dramatic level, it takes on the rise of the modern-day mythical villain, the guy who plunged us into this social media K-hole we can't seem to escape from. All the pieces are there, and I can recognize that it's a very well-made, very well-executed movie, but I just can't get into it. The actors are doing incredible work, but I just don't care to watch these guys who got rich rating women's looks online fighting over their unfathomable riches. It helps that The Social Network has the snappy, Oscar-winning dialogue of Aaron Sorkin, but even with Jesse Eisenberg's innate charm, I don't want to spend this much time with Mark Zuckerberg.
Hey, Zuckerfuck!
You ever hear the expression, the simplest answer is often the correct one?
Actually, I've never found that to be true.
Gone Girl is an incredible film based on an incredible book. The twists land just as effectively in their new medium, and Fincher did as good a job as Gillian Flynn of planting us in this specific world and introducing us to these characters and their storied, toxic relationship. But it's let down by its overlong runtime. Flynn adapted her own novel into a screenplay and refused to cut any storylines. Rosamund Pike gives a mesmerizing performance as Amy Elliott Dunn. She might be the most complex and intriguing villain in Fincher's rogues gallery, and that's saying a lot considering he gave us John Doe, Tyler Durden, and Mark Zuckerberg. While Ben Affleck leans into the hilarious damned-if-you-do awkwardness of her suspicious husband trying to save face in the public eye. The movie is a faithful adaptation and a solid cinematic thriller, but it could have done with cutting 20 or so minutes of subplots to maintain the momentum of the source material. Films don't get as much leeway as novels when it comes to pacing.
Hey.
I know a lot of die-hard Fincher fans were let down by The Killer. It was considered too simplistic compared to the usual fiendish complexity of his films, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the minimalism of it, I loved the dark humor of it, and I loved its satirical subversion of the well-worn hitman genre. I was entertained to no end by the juxtaposition of Michael Fassbender's cold, calculated voiceover narration laying out the strict code of rules he lives by, and his bumbling assassin on screen floundering, improvising, and breaking every single one of those rules. I found that character endlessly fascinating. He's a walking, talking contradiction. He claims he has no emotional attachments, but he spends the whole film pursuing revenge for someone he clearly cares about. He claims he never makes a mistake, and yet we never see him pull off a successful hit on screen. He's constantly fucking up and making it up as he goes along and narrowly escaping by the skin of his teeth. It might not be as complicated as Fight Club, but it's just as grimly hilarious.
I'm not the Zodiac, and if I was, I certainly wouldn't tell you.
Are you sure there's nobody else in the house?
Although it wasn't appreciated in its time, Zodiac is a gripping true crime procedural about the search for a notorious serial killer who was famously never caught. Watching these killings unfold and grip the city in terror, all while knowing that the quest to find him is futile and he'll remain unidentified, is truly chilling. Fincher's film is a deep dive into one of the most haunting murder cases of all time. It's been widely praised for its historical accuracy, and it's anchored by a trio of terrific turns by Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal, and Mark Ruffalo.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
We're not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank.
Although it received mixed reviews and bombed at the box office on its initial release, Fight Club has since become one of the cornerstones of cult cinema. Fincher's adaptation translates the manic energy of Chuck Palahniuk's source novel to the screen. It has rapid cuts and fast-paced montages with non-stop voiceover narration to tie everything together. It also has a delightfully dark sense of humor, making light of some of the grimmest subject matter. The biggest downside to Fight Club is the kind of fandom it inspired. A lot of toxic men took the wrong message from this film. You could say that's not the movie's fault, but the film downplays the book's homoeroticism, and Brad Pitt oozes an irresistible charisma as Tyler. So it's easy to get the wrong impression and mistake this satire of toxic masculinity for a celebration of it. But mixed messaging aside, it's a wildly entertaining film that doesn't slow down for a second.
What is he doing? They're locking us in.
Panic Room was the first movie that introduced me to Fincher's genius as a youngster, and it remains one of my absolute favourites of his. Fincher's movies have always been heavily influenced by the work of Alfred Hitchcock, but as a contained, high-concept suspense thriller, Panic Room is his most Hitchcockian film. It's a simple setup. A mother and daughter hide out in the eponymous high-tech panic room during a home invasion. But within that simplicity, Fincher creates well-rounded characters, not just the mother and daughter, but the burglars too. And he shoots this solitary location in the most inventive way possible. Jodie Foster gives a typically incredible performance as a character we can all recognize, a parent trying to keep their child safe under the most extreme circumstances. Fincher's films often have a Kubrickian coldness, but Panic Room touches on a universal emotion.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No.
7.
Alien 3 was the first film with David Fincher credited as director, but 7 is the first David Fincher movie in any real sense. This is when the world saw the cynical Hitchcockian visionary they were dealing with. It's a curious mix of gruesome slasher and buddy cop movie. It has a police procedural plot, but it focuses on engaging character work. The central mismatched detective dynamic is the oldest trope in the book. The grizzled, by-the-book veteran on the brink of retirement, and the reckless young hotshot eager to crack his first case. This could have easily turned out as a grislier, bloodier version of Lethal Weapon, but Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt share such impeccable chemistry and play their roles with such humanity and pathos and conviction that it feels fresh and authentic. Somerset and Mills aren't just tired archetypes, they're real people building a real relationship. I love the theory that the unnamed city is Gotham before Batman came along. Even if it is just a theory, it contextualizes the story beautifully. Either way, it's a sumptuous setting. We're in quintessential rain-soaked neo-noir territory. David Fincher has made a lot of great movies across a lot of different styles and tones. They all have their own merits. But all these years later, 7 remains his masterpiece. It's the best script he's ever worked with, courtesy of Andrew Kevin Walker. Not all of Fincher's movies are built on material worthy of his meticulous eye and attention to detail, but 7 sure is.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.